Están ahí en el gozo si las quieres ver. Yo creo que...
You ready, Fonzie, or what? You keep talking.
¡Ja!
All right. Let's go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Content is Profit. Last week or last episode, Fonzie did a huge shout out there. Fonzie, if you're listening out there in the interwebs, huge shout out. That was good. That was a good start of the podcast. If you haven't heard that episode, go back. It made me happy. It made me happy. Just gonna put that out there. And I think it's gonna help a lot of people that are starting to publish. But anyways, today we have a really awesome special episode with a special guest. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Special guest for some. I don't know if it's for me. We'll see. We'll see. Anyways, here we go. I just accidentally clicked record again. So, Fonzie, you have two recordings. All right, here we go. Hey, this is Luis, and welcome to the Content is Profit podcast. In here, you're going to get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase your revenue. You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content. All this while having a good time. The goal of this podcast is simple: entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit. That's right, Fonzie. If you are listening to this recording, that's how you say the word entertain. Let's go. All right. So without further ado, I have a special guest, and today we're going to be talking about those 5 things you need to know to actually grow your podcast. Coming from a top 25 in the national podcast and top 1% in the world podcast. Oh, cannot wait to dive in. But without further ado, welcome to our guest. Who is that behind that heart? Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah. It's me. Lover boy.
Whoa, lover. Oh, wow. Okay, lover boy.
Is that going to be my new branded name?
Lover boy. Who knows, man? I'm refraining from making a comment, but
any statements? Yeah, no statements allowed.
No statements allowed. But it was fun, dude. Good to see you, man. Where are you right now?
I am in New Zealand at the moment.
That's a lie. That is definitely a lie.
I'm in Orlando. I'm visiting a friend. So yeah, we gotta stay consistent. We gotta do the podcast. We practiced the intro, but the lag wasn't helping out. So we decided to just present me as a guest, and we got some props hanging out in here. My friend is the real lover boy in here with his girlfriend, and proofs of love everywhere in this apartment.
Proofs of love. That's right. Well, Fonzie, I'm excited to chat about this topic. What are we talking about today, man?
Tell me more about it.
Tell me more about it. Yeah, today we're like, hey, we have this amazing topic that we really want to tackle and talk about together. And he's like, you guide this thing because I think you have more experience. But a little story behind it. We when we first started the show, audience was definitely not the objective of the show. And if you've been in the industry for quite a while, podcasting is probably one of the toughest things to grow out there. That's why
we mentioned this too a lot of times, that audience wasn't the main interest at first because of the way we got into podcasting. It was just to recover the business and connect with the people that we wanted to do business with.
That's right. And, once the business was a little bit more stable than when we first started the show, we started to shift our focus a little bit. And, we didn't really look at data at all to go back and really study the show and the growth and anything, because really the priority was to stay consistent. And I think that's where a lot of people, when they first start on this platform, even though if they have a successful platform, whether that's YouTube, Shorts, TikToks, Facebook, Instagram, and then they go into podcasting, they get hit by this massive wall because they're not used to something like this, right? They're not used to create and see feedback right off the back. It takes quite a while. And that's the feedback that you hear from a lot of top creators. But recently we have an amazing opportunity with our amazing partners at the Hotspot Podcast Network. And now that the focus has shifted a little bit. How has it shifted, Fonzie?
Well, definitely their goal since they are a pretty big company and they want to advertise for their services, their goal is to get a lot of reach, which means for the podcasts that they have in the network, it means growing their audiences so they can advertise HubSpot solutions to them. So that being said, obviously it shifted a little bit of our goals with the podcast. In a way, I would say maybe not shifted, just evolved them a little bit because of course
Mm.
we still use the podcast to connect with people and build strong relationships and leverage the platform to get more clients. But at the same way, now we do have to focus a lot on the audience. What are the things that we're doing to grow the audience and not just grow it and get more listeners, but how can we retain those people that are coming to the platform to listen for information? How can we retain them for long periods of time, right? Not just 1, 2 episodes. How can we get them to be fans for life at the end of the day?
Yeah, I love it, right? And that was something completely foreign to us, and we are big advocates of you don't really need a big audience if you want to make an impact, right? Especially if you're a business. We think like we feel it because we've been there, right? We've been in a place where you get disaccredited as a business
Mm.
because you might not have the followers, right? And there's so many elements that come into play when that happens.
Yeah,
But now,
but we
right?
all, we all know we all know now that followers don't mean anything. There's people with a bunch of them that are broke, and then
That's
there's
right.
people with barely any of them that are pretty wealthy.
That's right. And now with this opportunity, right, we've over the last 3 months, we've had the opportunity to kind of play with different tools that we didn't have access to in the past, and to test a bunch of stuff, right,
Yeah.
and to get a ton of feedback from people that have been in the industry longer than we have. We have more than 10 years combined in experience in this medium, but we have people that are producers of shows that have been online for 10 years already, which is amazing, and we get that feedback from people that have seen this industry really grow. So that's what we're going to share today. There's actually 5 pieces of information that you need to know to actually grow your podcast, and that's in part huge shout out to the series that we did about like how to 5x your monthly downloads. There was a little bit of this in there, but this is how we're gonna break it down. The 5 things that you should be looking at as far as like data to actually grow the podcast. If you look online, there's all fluff. All you got to do is listen to this episode. No, I'm kidding. I'm sure you'll find useful information. But this episode is gold because when it was presented to us and we started executing on it, we saw immediate results. Fancy
It's
anything you
gold
want
because we are the ones saying
to?
it.
That's right. I mean, this in part like this allowed
Hashtag confidence.
hashtag confidence. Yeah. All right. So the point number one, right, is there's actually this is a group of 3 things, right? We call it the growth pillars, the 3 growth pillars, which is number 1, acquisition, number 2, service, and then number 3, retention, right?
Yeah.
These 3 elements need to be present inside of your show.
I just want to clarify here real quick. For service doesn't mean necessarily that you're servicing them with whatever it is that you're selling. For service in this medium means, are they getting something in return, something of value when they come to listen to your podcast?
That's right. Hey, Fonzie, tell the cops over there that to stay quiet, please.
I know. That's the real reason I came to Orlando. I'm like, I need to escape the cops. They just
Escape
found
the
me.
cops. All right. So number 1 with acquisition, right, is like how do you actually acquire new listeners, right? So in the episode of the how to 5x your monthly downloads, we go over a few of these ideas, but we got to be present a lot of the time, and there's a lot of things that you can do to acquire this, right? On the organic side, there's a lot of top of funnel awareness content, like for example, your TikToks, your reels, your shorts, right? That are short form content that presents your personality, that present your show, that present your topics to a bunch of random audience, right? That they're going to start tuning in into you. And then that presents an opportunity for them to come, right? We talked about paid media, like how to run campaigns with companies like Moped, for example, or platforms like Overcast, or even Facebook ads or YouTube ads. And these are things that we're going to be testing out. Fonzie, what are other things you think about acquisition? What are some of the things that you want to comment?
I mean, you get the organic side and then the paid side, right? I personally think we haven't experienced that much of the paid side. We have a somewhat of a limited perspective, but at the same time, I think you can definitely implement some direct response principles on the acquisition side of things, right? Where you can potentially invest some money in acquiring some leads, and your lead magnet can just be, you know, kind of like broken down in 5 different episodes of your podcast, which at the same time it's already working your way through retaining those people to listen to you. I think there's plenty of different ways to do it. The key is finding the way that works for you, for your bandwidth, for your
Yeah.
capacity, that you can stay consistent with on the long term.
Yeah, a couple other ideas, right? With acquisition, obviously, like Fonzie said, if you have already a business that is lead and you have an email list, right? Make sure that that's something that you put in there, whether that's a weekly email, letting them know about what you talked about, guesting, right? Going on other
Are you talking
shows.
to me right now? Are you talking to me?
I am definitely talking to you, Fonzie.
He's like,
Uh,
send the emails.
Send the emails. If you're listening and you're part of our email list, you'll understand why. um yeah, if you want to go be a part of the Content is Profit community, just check us out in the in Facebook group Content is Profit, or go to contentisprofit.com and check the podcast out there. Anyways,
Actually, go to the Facebook group right now because the website is being built and there's no way for you to get in the email list. So go to the Facebook group, Content is Profit.
there you go. It's okay. They can see the website. They can give us feedback. Anyways, so those are a few things that you can do. So again, number one is acquisition. How do you actually acquire new listeners to your show? And then after that, after they come to your show, right? Whether you're guesting, people listen to you in other podcasts. Those could be ad placements. Those could be pre-rolls or mid-rolls, right? Those could be you as a guest in other shows. They'll come to you, and then you have to service them with content, right? You have to actually deliver on the promise. For example, our promise is how do you actually turn content into profit, right? So we, for example, we talk about things like this that are actionable, that are tips that you can use today to actually grow your platform, or we actually talk to experts in the field or people that have successful businesses on how they're actually utilizing content to drive the revenue in their business. So I think we're doing a pretty good job at delivering the promise, but you let me know if you're listening right now, you feel like, hey, you guys can do better. Please let me know, send it in the feedback or leave us a review. Fonzie, anything else that you want to do on the service?
Well, I'm just gonna add, if you think we're doing good, it's still leave a review and send us a pat in the back.
Pat in the back. But yeah, so I think like this is important, right? And we're gonna dive in a little bit into how we actually measure if we're actually servicing the audience, right? How we actually, if we're actually giving them the right content when they come and they stay, right? We had a pretty interesting episode when we invested in paid media for, I think it was the first time. There was a uptick because obviously you're paying for those downloads for people to listen to your show, but these are people that are exposed to your show for the very first time. And then what happens is some of them are going to stay, right? Normally the data that it was shared with us, it was between 3 and 5%. Our show actually diminished, right? And that was very eye-opening because we didn't know if it was like the type of content that we were advertising. It was a specific episodes that we put out there. We were testing. It was a brand new audience that got to know us. And then there was another piece of information, like in sales, right? There's a certain amount of points of contact that you need to do to acquire them. And then are they actually going to stay? Are they going to listen to those to those podcast episodes? So it does require some time. And then the second time that we ran the campaign, it was a complete opposite. It was awesome because it went up consistently. And also, I think the frequency of episodes, how many times you publish that you promise, is very important. Anything else that you want to add in there, Fonzie?
Yeah, no, looking back at that campaign, I think we did advertise, obviously, one of the main episodes that we were doing back then, which was an interview, and those episodes are usually, about an hour long. I do think that we should have advertised kind of like a teaser in a sense, just create a literally less than 5 minutes or even like a 2 minute long episode where all we talk about is what's in it for you if you tune into the show. What are you going to learn? What are you going to get if you listen to the show consistently? Because then, you can spark the curiosity on people, you can hook them in wanting to know more, and that potentially can, I think it has a better opportunity to transition people to go and listen to another episode rather than okay, cool, I listened to 5 minutes of this one, and since it's my very first time, right, it can be maybe a little too dense, or you know again, it's my first time exposed to these guys talking with such a sexy accent, or the cool guests that we've had. But yeah, I think, looking back at it and reflecting, I think a shorter teaser could potentially be better. Definitely, we would have to test it out just to compare results. At the end of the day, it's just a hypothesis.
Yeah, the second time that we did it, that it was more effective. One of the episodes that we advertised was very similar, but it was a 30-minute episode that we did introducing what the concept was. So I think that had a part in it, and then
Yeah,
right after the fact, we stayed very consistent with the frequency of publication, which the first time we kind of dropped off a little bit with the other commitments that we had. So keep in mind, again, being consistent still remains the number one thing. Now, after you service your audience, right, after you deliver the promise, after you deliver all the value that you advertise for your show, the third time is retention. Like, how long are they
hmm
actually staying, listening to your show, right? And in this what is the personality of the host, something that you like? Is it the topic relevant to the thing? Like, is it engaging? Does it spark curiosity? Do you leave enough open loops in your interview? These are all elements, right, that at first they can be very, very overwhelming. This is why after 300 something, well, I think it was more 250 episodes, we did not look at any of this, right? Because if we would have looked at these elements, it would have been really hard to try to
to
figure
stay
out.
consistent. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think now that we've did all these episodes, this is more useful because now we have a flow. We can be consistent. We have a system in place that can allow us to make these changes, and you're going to see some of those coming very soon. So, what are some tips of retention, Fonzie, that you want to share?
Well, one of my favorite ones probably that we discussed was adding the what's in it for you section at the very beginning of the podcast, right? Instead of maybe diving straight into the show or straight into the intro at the very beginning of the show, tell people why are they there, what are they going to learn from that episode. Something that they can do is frame that as them explaining the problem, because whoever explains the problem the best, people will assume they have the solution. So you want people to think, oh, this person has a solution to this problem that I'm experiencing. Therefore, they stay and listen to the whole episode to find out, right? Obviously, you got to deliver on the promise. If you tell them you're going to, share with them how to solve X, Y, and C, you got to tell them the solution for X, Y, and C throughout the show. But I think it's key, right? And that is a segment that usually is recorded after the show is done, right? Because now you have the full spectrum of information. So then you can go back and say, cool, this is the hook that I'm going to create, leading people to the topics that we discussed. So that is definitely at least one of my favorite ways now that you can increase your retention and just get people motivated to keep listening to your episodes.
That's right. Recently, I saw a video. There's this guy that I like to follow. He's a video editor for Logan Paul, and they recently released a video about how he bought the most expensive Pokemon card in the world. I think it was almost a $6 million transaction, which was insane.
Ooh,
And the
pocket
video,
change.
pocket change, yeah, and it was the most watched video on his platform. And I think it's Jaden, that's his name. He breaks down how he maintains the attention of the viewer throughout the whole video, starting from the very first second of that video. And I think it was super interesting. Obviously, we move in different mediums, podcasting and that's more YouTube specific content. But it's super awesome, right? And we are fans of going to different places, different platforms, different industries to see what's working there and see what elements can we grab. So they utilize the music, the fast cuts, the jump cuts, different things and different elements on how he builds a story to be able to retain this amount of people. Because at the end of the video, they do make an announcement, a business announcement, and they need the attention of that viewer to get to that point after 20 minutes of video, right, to make sure that they can actually promote the thing that they're promoting. So I think that was cool. We might leave the link right in the description if you want to take a look at that video, but it was super interesting. So think about those ways in your podcast. Like, are you actually getting people to listen to most of your show, right? And we're going to get into like, how do we find that out? So the first three elements is acquisition, right? How do we actually get those listeners into our podcast? We mentioned a few options, right? How do we service them? Are we actually delivering in the promise of the show? In our case, content is profit. How to turn your content into profit. We're literally walking you through 5 steps on how to do that, which I think is good. So let us know. Share their feedback. Fonzie is like, yeah, so good. And then the third one is retention. How do we actually keep the attention of the listener in our show? Fonzie, anything you want to add before we move on to the 2 ways on how we measure this?
Now let's just move on. People want the truth.
Don't want the
They want
gold.
everything.
The people want the gold, or you want the gold? You're like, tell me, please.
People want the juice. Truth
Yeah,
is, I don't know any of this, so I'm just learning right now.
we're
I'm
teaching
kidding.
Fonzie too. He was in those sessions, guys. He does pay attention. He does pay attention. All right. So the first, the number, the first way on how we're gonna measure this, and this is the fourth element in this list of 5, right? Is looking for patterns in your 7-day report. So whatever you host your podcast, there's gonna be a place where you can find a report of the first 7 days whenever you release those episodes, right? At first, we used to publish. Fonzie, by the way, if you're listening, if you're watching, I apologize. If you're listening,
It's
I
not me,
apologize.
bro.
there's
I'm
there's
telling
this
you, it's not
heart
me.
balloon shape hitting Fonzie in the face. It's like,
It's
Fonzie, are you
just
looking for
chasing me.
love after your breakup? Are you looking for love?
This thing is just chasing me. It's like I think it says you look like you need some love, and it just wants to, share some.
The heart is coming to your face. Tangent alert. So whatever you host your podcast or your platform, there's gonna be an option where you can find a 7-day report, right? On Buzzsprout, that's where we used to host our podcast. It was very simple. You can just go to the analytics page. Now we use something called Megaphone. It's still there, right? And what we want to look for in there are the titles and the topics, and see how many downloads. You're looking for trends, like how many spikes do you have in those first 7 days? Do we have outliers in those, or are they all pretty consistent, right? So if at 7 days you see 1 or 2 episodes or 3 episodes that spike up in downloads, that means that Fonzie is this. Okay, here we go. Hold up. Let's remove him from the screen. Fonzie, whenever you're ready, you can just give me the thumbs up and we'll bring you back. But this is not happening. So throughout the video, right, throughout that report, you're gonna look for those outliers. 1, 2, 3 episodes that have higher downloads than others, and then you're gonna ask yourself, what's different from that title that caught attention for people to click on it and download it? So if you're familiar with YouTube platforms like YouTube, right, this is what a lot of people call clickbait, right? And then we're gonna identify like what's clickbait and what's a successful episode. But what you're looking for is like, what's this title enticing enough to be able to do this? For example, our 5x episodes, the second one and the third one, were very effective because we're actually telling them like how to actually 5x your monthly downloads. Hopefully this one will also be part of that and do that. So look for those titles that retain attention or that attract that new listener. All right, let's see if Fonzie is ready to come back. Are you ready to come back?
I was banned from the podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna kick you out again.
Why? I'm telling you, it's not me. It's just literally flying my way. So I'm just trying to keep it away.
You can keep it in your legs. You can step on it. You can deflate it. There's many ways that you can keep that heart away from you.
No, it's just like tied to something, and then the
Okay,
wind
I
just
think I
blows
think
towards.
we're failing in the service section of our podcast, Fonzie. So tell
We
me
are.
more.
We
Tell
have
me
it
more
too
about the
many
7 days.
times.
Yeah,
Too
tell
many
me more about
times.
the 7-day report.
I mean, you mentioned everything, but I think it's pretty insightful. For me, was a shift on how to read that data, right? And I related especially to how YouTube works, which, the 2 point of data that you want in there are click-through rates and retention. So it pretty much is the same, right? Like the 7-day data points just allow you to see in a clearer way whether you are getting people interested, right? Like, are people clicking on your podcast? You're not gonna see how many people, that you're not gonna see that click through rate, whether that is 4 or 10%, whatever. But depending on the quality of the hook, you're gonna see whether more people are actually clicking on that episode in comparison to whatever episode you're comparing it to. Let's just say is the previous one, right? So obviously a good title it's just gonna hook more people, and more people wanna get to know about it. Or maybe you notice in, let's say, 5 different episodes that have very high numbers, that it's not just the title itself, the hook, but it's the topic, right? And you realize, oh, people want to know more about this specific topic rather than the other one that I covered 20 other times, right? And now you can start to make the right changes so you can get more people attracted and then retaining them for longer as well.
Yeah, a real life example, right, for us was the episode that is titled "Finding, Extracting, and Implementing Your Genius." Right, I think that was super awesome. It has been one of the most downloaded episodes in the first 7 days that we've had, and we asked the question. Well, that was an amazing episode with our guest Julie, and she was a ghostwriter for ClickFunnels for Russell Branson, right? So we're asking ourselves, well, was it the guest? Was it the topic? And it was interesting because her name is not mentioned in the topic in the title, but again, she also has an email list, right? So these are things that you should be asking. Are they promoting on those email lists, right? If they are, maybe that's an indicator that we should be asking all the guests to promote the podcast to their list, to their content people, to their social media, right? So start looking for those outliers in that 7-day report and start extracting some of that information that can help us, can help you build that consistent system to advertise your show into new audiences. Fonzie, anything else you want to add before we move on to the last
Move
point?
on to the last point. Move on.
All right. So before we move on, there's what are the 7-day data patterns? I have them here in my cheat sheet. So what day of the week, for example, are you publishing those episodes? Is it a different host that is publishing that episodes? Clearly, whenever I do a solo episode, it's way better than when Fonzie does a solo episode. Just gonna put that out there.
Pico, bro. We should grab the data of your solo episodes against my solo episodes.
I am down. It's downloaded. I haven't seen it yet, but it's downloaded. We should definitely do that. Is it a different? Is it a guest episode or a solo episode? So our solo episodes tend to perform a little bit better. So we're adapting into that, and then are the types of titles that you're using different, the same, or the types of topics that you're touching? So those are different data patterns that you can start looking for in that 7-day report. All right, so quick recap. Point number 1 is like, how do I acquire the customer different ways? At the beginning of the episode, you can find them. Are we servicing our audience, right? Are we actually delivering on the promise? Number 3 is retention, like how long are they actually staying? And then how do we measure those 3? The first thing is to look at your 7-day report. And the last point right here, which is super interesting, is your average consumption. So how do you actually find the average consumption on your episode so you can act on how do I actually, this is how you service your people and how you retain your people. So Apple Podcasts currently is the biggest platform that distributes podcasts out there in the world. Spotify is quickly eating that up, but this data you can find it in Apple Connect. So if you have a podcast published in Apple, you can type just apple.connect.com, I believe it is. You log in, you claim your podcast if you haven't claimed it already, and then you can look at this data. You can filter for 30 days, 60 days, and it's going to give you a data point of what's happening in that show. When do people listen? So from minute number 1 to minute number whatever at the end of the episode, it's going to tell you people listen to 70% of your episode, or 90% of your episode, or 50% of your episode. So keep in mind, because it's just Apple data, it's just an indicator, right? It might not be it is not grabbing data from other publishing platforms. So keep that in mind as you look at this. So anything that's stuck out, Francie, for you when we're looking at this?
Well, I mean, the clear one is just go back to the points where you see drops in people and see what are you doing on those moments, right? Or maybe points that have a little hill in there, right? Or some peaks, and then check what are you doing good that is attracting people to that specific segment, right? That could mean somebody told somebody else, hey, go check out, the BIZBROS episode 215 and check the minute 5. You're really gonna like this part of the episode. But most importantly, I think we can learn a lot from those dips. So go to that part and then check what is it. A lot of podcasts, you're gonna see a dip in a very specific place. That is where the ads are placed, right? People just go boom, boom, boom. They just tap on the 15-second, 30-second fast forward, and they just try to skip those ads, and usually you'll see those dips. but also check in case maybe it was a moment where you said a dad joke and people thought it wasn't funny and then they left, right? No, nothing personal here,
Nothing personal. Yeah.
but but yeah, just use those moments. I think it's more like a map to identify those moments where you can learn from. And I had another comment, but it just went over my head, so I'll try to remember it and I'll bring it back.
No, I was you're gonna be able to see a couple of things, like if you have sponsors in your show, or if you riff a little bit about it, or maybe you touch a topic that was not relevant for that day. You're gonna see that dip, or you're gonna see a fall off, right? A fall off is when actually all the listeners leave the episode. The dip is when they actually skip, right, those advertising of those areas, right? And what you should be looking at, like realistically, is from like 5%, like the initial 5%, after that to about 90%. That's like the juice of that episode. At the beginning, obviously, there's going to be people clicking, right? So that data can be a little bit skewed if you run ads to it, right? They might listen to like 5 minutes or so, and then they drop off. But after that is you're going to get the consistent data. So what you're looking for is on consumption rates. That's the percentage that you're looking for. And what's happening, right, with high consumption rates, like what happened in those episodes that are high. So was it the quality of the guest? Was it the quality of the topic? Was it that you were on fire that day and you delivered some amazing dad jokes, right? Or what happened? What happened in the low consumption rates? Energy level was low. The guest was not good. You couldn't ask the right questions, right, that serve your audience. Like, what are those things? And hopefully, as you start looking at this and dissecting your episodes and you're dissecting your podcast, that will give you enough topics and gas to move forward and continue to improve on your show.
Yeah, I think it's at the end of the day, all these data points are a map for you to create new conclusions and hypotheses and then go and test them, right? At the end of the day, is you're listening to your audience actions and then creating, okay, what are the next steps that I should take? And then go from there and repeat, measure again, listen, I'm doing air quotes, to those actions, and then implement again.
Awesome. So quick recap again, the 3 pillars, right, that we should be looking at is how do we acquire the listeners, right? How do we actually service them? Are we delivering on the promise? How do we retain them, right? And how we measure that is through number 4, the 7-day report, and then number 5, your 30-day report. So yeah, I think this was super useful. As soon as we started implementing it, we changed a couple of things just on titles, on how we title different things. I won on that one because FONZI was so literal. So I think I'm winning on the title side of things.
What? You always ask me, what is the hook? What is
yeah,
the
and then
hook?
I change it. Yeah. So a good example of this, right? What happens if this is a question for you, FONZI. So what happens if we have a good 7-day, right? A good 7-day feedback, but a bad 30-day feedback?
Well, that means your episode has potentially has a very good hook, a very good title, right? Or it could be a topic of interest for people, but then you didn't deliver, right, on the long term. Maybe it wasn't good enough for people, that people started dropping off early and not completing the episode.
That's right. Easy peasy. So start playing with these elements. Start keeping an eye on that data. If you do it and you find something interesting, let us know. Send us a quick DM. Leave us a review because we want to know if this is actually valuable for you. We've been in so many presentations. We've been in so many things that talk about podcast growth, and it's always the 2 things that people continue to say, which is like guesting, but everything, it seems to be a lot of fluff. And when we learned about this and started implementing, it was actionable data that it served us pretty well. So we're going to continue to dive into this. We're going to continue to bring this information to you. So stay tuned in the podcast. Stay tuned in our community, in the Contents Profit Facebook group. Come join, come hang out, come say hi on social media at Luis.Camejo or at Luis Camejo V or at BIZBROS. You choose. Yeah, FONZI, anything else?
Yeah, pick a bro.
Pick a bro. Wow. FONZI, have fun in your game. I hope Arsenal loses. No, I'm kidding.
That's fine. Haters are gonna hate.
I'm just gonna put that out there. Fonzie wore a Barcelona jersey. It was his present to me.
No, I didn't. It
It
didn't
was
happen.
amazing. I have proof, and
Stop lying.
go to my
Stop
Instagram
lying.
stories. You'll find it. If you like soccer, you know how much that means. But anyways, Fonzie, good having you as a guest today or as a commentator. And yeah, I think that's the episode. Is that the episode?
Thumbs up. Approved.
Thumbs up. With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Contents Profit Podcast. Go ahead, follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at BIZBROS Co.
That is right. And today's episode help you move one step closer towards your goal. Please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys. All right. Selfie time, Fonzie.
Wait. I gotta bring the other guest of the show.
The other guest of the show.
Okay, here.
Like this.
Lover boy.
Awesome. All right, social media. We'll see you guys on Monday. Take care. Bye.
See ya.